So Andy Dalton was upset about the Bengals benching him and was upset also that they didn't make a move to trade him. I'll discuss this next and give my thoughts on this episode of New Stripe City. Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on this video. So here we are. Andy Dalton is upset that the Bengals have benched him. He said that he didn't agree with the decision, and he felt that if Zach were going to bench him, or he felt like he was going to bench him, that the Bengals should have told him, and Zach should have told him early on in the process before the trade deadline. So it appears that Andy Dalton, you guys all know the story, was told 3 hours from the trade deadline on his birthday that he would be benched and that the Bengals would go with Ryan Finley. So for me, I think there's a couple of things to look at here. Number one, Andy Dalton, in my opinion, should have been benched after the Jaguars game, but he wasn't, which I think that this was a move from Zach that actually makes sense because when you talk about putting in a rookie quarterback or switching to a quarterback, it's usually done during that bye week. You look at last year with the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, that's when they decided to switch quarterbacks. A lot of teams use that as an opportune time to do it, especially when you have to adjust to a new quarterback with different skills that has to kind of develop a rapport with some of his receivers. It makes perfect sense. It just so happens that unfortunately this time for the Bengals bye week was during conflicting with the actual trade deadline. So that's why the decision wasn't made until then. There's a couple things here. So a lot of people, me included, if you listen to the last episode, I thought that the Bengals should trade Andy Dalton. I feel like the reason that they didn't trade him was just due to the fact that if they would have traded him, they would have had to pay him $8 million, and they would have traded him to a team for maybe a mid-round pick, probably the Chicago Bears, more than likely, but they still would have had to pay $8 million. And the only reason I could see them not doing this is because if they wait until after the season, they could trade him in the offseason, maybe not for as high of a pick, but they could trade him and it would only cost them $500,000 in dead cap. So that could be one of the reasons that they did not trade Andy Dalton, because of that cap figure, because of that $8 million they'd have to pay him. That is a great reason for not trading him. From the other side, it seems like he is upset, and this is a situation that you're going to have to deal with at least for 8 games. So do the Bengals really want to deal with that? I'm not sure. Not sure how this really affects the locker room. It seemed as A.J. Green was fine with everything. He's still looking to get an extension. I'll be doing a video with an update on him very soon. But I get it. I understand what the Bengals' decision was here, especially given the circumstances of the way that the season is going. And it seemed like Zach waited until they were basically mathematically eliminated from having a winning record to make this move. So I'm not mad at him for doing that. And the Bengals need to see what they have in Ryan Finley. We've talked about that numerous times on here. I've dropped videos talking about this after the Jaguars game. I agree with the decision. I think that it was a right decision, especially given the circumstances of the Bengals ending up with a, top 3 pick potentially. You have to see what you have in Ryan Finley before you go into that draft. Like, if you can keep Ryan Finley and take Chase Young, you need to know that. If you need to take Tua or Burrow, you need to know that. So they did it the right way. They still can accomplish trading Andy Dalton in the offseason. I'm not too upset about that. The timing, this is a business, people. Birthdays and stuff like that's cool and everything. But the realistic view of this is that the Bengals were returning from the UK. So there's no telling when they got in. There's no telling what was going on in terms of that late travel back. Now, it would be different if they had a home game, and I'm kind of throwing them some bail money here, but it'd be different if they had a home game and things were normal and, this happened at the same time. The trade deadline was Tuesday, so they played in the UK on Sunday. I'm not sure when they got back, so who's to say, how they could have really controlled the time in there. It was bad that it was on his birthday, but what else are they going to do? At first I kind of disagreed with with them for not trading him, because I thought, why not go ahead and get him out of the way now and then see what you can possibly get. But honestly, those draft picks aren't really going to change that much, and there is potential that you could have even more suitors in the offseason. So why not take a chance and look at it that way? I don't think that Andy Dalton's draft value really goes down that much. From my perspective, I was thinking maybe a third or a fourth round pick. I think you could still get that in the offseason depending on how things happen. Guys could go down. There's all kind of different scenarios that could happen here. But my thoughts are that Andy Dalton really just needs to man up and accept what's going on now. Like, he may not be the total blame, but he was not part of the solution for this team to win games. And, he's been very fortunate that he hasn't been benched in previous years here. You talk about that Ravens game a few years ago, the home opener. After throwing 3-4 interceptions, he wasn't sat during the game. So the fact that Zach gave him as long of a leash as he did, I think he should be thankful for. Obviously, it's an upsetting situation, though, so I get why he's upset and why he wasn't allowed to get traded. But this team has to do what's best for them. So if saving $8 million is what's best for them, then they're going to do that, and he's just got to accept that. So I don't think that he'll be granted a release or anything like that, because I feel like the only reason that they may have kept him, like I said again, was for money reasons, and there's no difference between a trade or a release. So I don't see that happening. He just needs to man up, help Ryan along like he said that he will, which we know that Andy Dalton's a classy guy, but just take it in stride and use this as motivation to find your next suitor, and that way you actually have a say in where you actually go. That's another thing. With 3 hours to go, how much of a say do you really have in where you go? That's another thing. So they may be willing to work with him on a potential destination and send him to a contender or wherever his family wants to go. So those are my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And as usual, I'll leave you with a who day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.